Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be checking out Action Comics presents Doomsday Special Issue 1 by Dan Waters, Eddie Barrows, Iber Ferreira and Max Raynor. The big special is for the 30th anniversary of the death of Superman, but instead of retreading the same old storylines like a lot of the writers touching that subject do, Dan Waters actually gives us something fun and new for the character of Doomsday. This is also a Supergirl-centric storyline as she is shown an awful nightmare of Doomsday and along with Martian Manhunter's help decodes it to reveal that Doomsday is now in hell, and thanks to how hell operates on belief, in that if you actually believe hell exists then it will, Doomsday has almost made himself into the supreme ruler of hell and ousted the devil by gaining support of his followers, which means he'll be able to soon return to Earth and wreak more havoc. It's a great little premise for a plot device like Doomsday, and let's be honest, he was more of a plot device than a character. And finally they're making him something more and giving him something to do outside of always fighting Superman or the Superman family. Supergirl also getting the focus on the story is cool as hell as well, since she technically wasn't around when Doomsday killed Superman, at least not this version of the Supergirl. The Matrix Supergirl was still around, but Kara Zor-El was not. And I really like how, because she was on Krypton, she kind of knew about Doomsday. He was like an urban myth on Krypton, so that's how she sort of treats him and how she also treats hell. I like the idea that because she grew up in a society that was kind of governed by science and logic, she tries to apply that to a concept like hell, in that it should not exist. Something like this should not actually exist in the physical realm or in the rational realm, and she's trying to wrap her head around the fact that it does actually exist. It's a fun divergence away from how Superman would go about dealing with hell and how it works and how it exists. The story finds its ending in a fantastic way too, with both Manhunter and Supergirl fighting Doomsday and Supergirl getting a cool hell-like armor, which is kind of a running thing for Supergirl. She always gets like a neat new armor or costume. She's gotten this, she's gotten stuff from like a Red Lantern costume, she's gotten armors and everything. They always seem to want to give Supergirl some sort of armor for some reason, but it looks cool and it's great and it helps her fight Doomsday, and they prevent him from getting loose by simply giving hope to the lost souls of hell, causing them to use their very bodies to wall up the gateway to Earth and prevent Doomsday from getting loose again, almost bringing things full circle and sealing him away in a tomb again, and having the book end with him bashing his fists against the wall of bodies, much like how he was doing in the lead up to his release in Superman in the 90s. You would just see his fist hitting the wall. It's a nice little callback to that. The ending also kind of plants a seed within Supergirl, which is quite interesting, in that she begins to believe after what she saw in hell existing, Doomsday being there and everything, maybe what they do as heroes is quite worthless. Like, obviously she doesn't outright believe that what they do is worthless and she's going to stop being a hero. It's more so that she's had this realization, a revelation of what can go wrong, and has begun to believe in hell and in the power of hell and Doomsday, which, as we're told throughout the story, is enough to make those things manifest in real life and become real. Just quite an interesting concept for someone like Kara, who is so logic-driven and science-driven. So I'm interested to see if Dan Waters or Philip Kennedy Johnson or Joshua Williamson continue this story in some way, since it is revealed that we are going to get more Doomsday within the pages of Action Comics and other Superman-related stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if this story with Supergirl and Manhunter going to hell and finding out that hell really exists and coming to terms with that does end up coming back at some point. Dan isn't just done with one story though, as he also catches up with Raphael R.C., a man who almost brought Doomsday back to life during Lazarus Planet, and Manhunter was the only one to stop him. And again, it gives the character a really cool story, centering around his role in hell as the realm's own Superman. We learn that somehow he is in hell, he's in the fifth circle of hell, and he somehow managed to, when he died, get a little bit of Manhunter's powers when he merged with him during Lazarus Planet, and because of that, he can shift into other beings, and the one he decides to protect lost souls with is Bloodwind, the hero Manhunter posed as during the original death of Superman. This is a cool little nod to that. Obviously obviously, but it also effectively makes Bloodwind an actual character now. Since before it was always just Manhunter as the character, and then when we got the original Bloodwind back, they didn't really have much of a story. There was a little bit of a story with him battling a Dream Slayer and all this sort of stuff, but never really went anywhere, and the character just kind of got lost in the shuffle of things, and we haven't really seen him all that much for quite a while actually. So this is like a complete reboot of that character with this new character, and I quite like that. I quite like that this part of Manhunter, this part that he used back during the 90s, is being passed on to another person that they can use and bring back Bloodwind, and I'm looking forward to it, and especially since it's such a cool premise for him to come back to be this Superman to the lost souls of hell. That's a really cool premise, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it in Action Comics. Eddie Barrows, Iber Ferreira, and Max Raynor joined Dan on the special with some great looking artwork that captures the horror of hell and Doomsday really well. Eddie and Iber paint a really cool looking hell filled with bright yellows and reds, offsetting it with darker purples and cool blues, and I also like that they kept Doomsday in shadow. Every time we saw him, he was just bathed in a shadow, or he was just this hulking mass of blackness that you could just see coming towards the heroes. It was a really cool way to visualize this character who is just a non-stop barrage of violence and hate. Raynor, meanwhile, got a little bit more neutral with his version of the fifth circle of hell, and I actually quite like it that it was just a gloomy swamp, sort of like you're in the Florida Everglades or something, and this is what hell is like here. Then we also got a little bit more traditional hell with a giant flaming coliseum where all these bodies are being flambéed alive, basically. His take on Bloodwind is cool as well, since I love how he made the character's movements and body language very much like Superman's. He stands like Superman's. When he flies, it looks like how you would think Superman would fly. It's a really cool visual, especially because the character of Raphael was inspired by people like Superman, and now he is the Superman of hell. Dan Waters' Doomsday special was a fun little ride that finally gave a new and interesting story to Doomsday, along with making Supergirl a primary player in the villain's reign of hell. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10, so check it out and keep an eye here on my channel, and I'll be covering Doomsday's next adventures as they appear in Action Comics and Superman in the coming months.